It's 1987.
Okay.
You are sitting in this packed, incredibly noisy theater in Chennai. And up on this massive screen is Kamal Hassan.
Right, who is arguably like the biggest, most charismatic star in Indian cinema at that exact moment.
Exactly. Huge star. And he's playing Valu, who is this aging underworld don, just a man of immense, terrifying power.
Yeah.
And he has just received literally the most devastating news a parent can possibly get. He's just been told that his daughter is dead.
Wow.
Now, if you're sitting in that theater in 1987, your brain is like completely conditioned to expect a very specific sequence of events.
Right, totally. You're bracing yourself.
You're waiting for the soaring melodramatic orchestra. You're expecting the camera to, violently crash zoom right into his face.
It was basically mandatory back then.
Right. You're waiting for the agonizing wail, the dramatic dialogue where he like curses the heavens and explains exactly how broken his heart is.
Yeah.
You expect volume.
Because, I mean, that was the cinematic grammar of the era. The director's job essentially was to hold up this massive neon sign to the audience, screaming like, "This is the sad part, cry right now."
Exactly.
It was sensory overload by design, just an absolute bombardment of auditory and visual cues to make sure, not a single person in the very back row missed the emotional beat.
But then the moment actually happens on screen. And instead of the wail and instead of the crash zoom, you get something completely alien to that theater.
Yeah.
You get absolute suffocating silence.
Which is crazy to think about.
It really is. There's no background music. The orchestra doesn't swell at all. It just vanishes.
Completely drops out.
And the camera doesn't frantically cut back and forth between like crying family members.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue. What you get is this raw, unbroken, excruciatingly intimate shot of a man just breaking in half.
He just sits there.
He just sits there, the frame holds, the silence just stretches out, and it is devastating.
See, that silence, that was a radical, almost dangerous choice.
Really dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. In an industry that built its entire foundation on bombast and high-volume emotion, choosing restraint was like tantamount to cinematic rebellion.
Right.
It was a director deciding right in the climax of a massive commercial gangster epic to just let the frame do the heavy lifting, to pull everything back and strip the emotion down to its rawest, most unadorned state.
And that actually brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are going to deconstruct the mind of the man behind that camera.
Yes. Gopala Ratnam Subramaniam.
Universally known as Mani Ratnam.
Master.
Over a 40-year career, he didn't just break the rules of Indian cinema. He completely rewrote its syntax.
He really did.
We're going to figure out how this one singular director bridged that seemingly impossible gap between, commercial popcorn-selling blockbusters and elevated structural high art.
And completely changed the global cinematic landscape in the process.
Exactly. So welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive into Mani Ratnam, the poet of frames.
It's just one of the most fascinating trajectories in modern art, honestly, because when you see a filmmaker execute a move that confident, that revolutionary, like that silent shot in Nayakan, your immediate assumption is, well, this person must have been bred in the theater.
Right. You assume the classic origin story.
Exactly. You assume he spent decades as an apprentice, holding light reflectors, fetching coffee for veteran directors, just absorbing the old rules for 20 years so he could figure out how to break them.
Like the kid who got a Super 8 camera for his 8th birthday and literally never put it down.
Yeah, but the reality is completely sideways.
It is so sideways.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so let's get into his background.
Let's do it.
He was born in 1956, grew up in Madurai and later Madras, which of course we now know as Chennai.
Right.
And to be perfectly fair, the film business was literally in his house.
Oh, yeah. Inescapable.
His father was a film producer. His brother was a distributor who later became a producer. He's eating dinner with the business of cinema every single night.
But here's the wild part.
Yeah.
He wanted absolutely nothing to do with it.
Zero interest.
Zero. He had no ambition to be on a set. It's like the classic rebellion of the child who just refuses to join the family business, but taken to an extreme.
Right.
While his family is dealing with all the chaos of film production, he completely turns his back on it. He goes to Madras University, and then he does something that seems almost comical in retrospect.
Wait, I know this part, but it still gets me every time.
He moves to Mumbai and enrolls in the Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies.
Okay, let's unpack this. That is one of the most prestigious business schools in the country.
A huge deal. Very hard to get into.
So he gets a postgraduate degree in management. He enters the corporate world. He
Yes.
becomes a management consultant.
No, it's wild.
I just cannot get over this.
Mm.
The man who is going to completely redefine the emotional vulnerability of modern cinema is currently sitting in an air-conditioned office in Bombay writing, like, corporate feasibility reports and optimizing supply chains.
It sounds absurd, but honestly, this is the skeleton key to understanding his entire cinematic philosophy.
A management degree is the skeleton key to his cinema.
Think about what a management consultant actually does.
Okay.
They walk into a bloated, inefficient corporate structure, right? They look at all the redundancies, all the wasted energy, all the processes that exist just because, well, that's the way we've always done it.
Right, they trim the fat.
Exactly, and they start ruthlessly cutting. They optimize, they streamline.
Okay, hold on. Are you saying he treated the medium of film like a bloated corporate spreadsheet?
Precisely. That is exactly what he did. While he was consulting, he was obsessively watching films in his off hours. But he wasn't watching them like a casual fan.
How was he watching them?
He was watching them like an analyst. He was studying K. Balachander, the great Tamil maverick.
Oh, sure.
He was dissecting Guru Dutt's tragedies. But even more importantly, he was absorbing international masters like Akira Kurosawa and Martin Scorsese.
Okay, that's quite a curriculum.
Right. He was looking at their work and deconstructing it, frame by frame, trying to understand the structural engineering behind the emotion.
Did his analytical brain actually give him the structural discipline that pure artists sometimes lack?
I think absolutely.
But wait, I have to push back a little here. Because, anyone can sit on their couch and analytically watch Taxi Driver or Seven Samurai.
Sure.
That does not mean you can walk onto a noisy, chaotic film set in 1983 with zero technical training, zero time in film school, having skipped the mandatory apprenticeship that literally every other director goes through, and actually command a crew.
It's a huge leap.
How does a spreadsheet guy not get laughed right out of the room by veteran cinematographers and actors who've been doing this for decades?
Well, that is the exact friction that defined his early years. And the truth is, his lack of traditional training was actually his greatest asset.
Wait, really? How?
Because when you apprentice under a senior director in the Indian studio system of the 1970s and 80s, you aren't just learning how to load a camera or call action.
What are you learning?
You are absorbing their limitations. You adopt their assumptions about what an audience supposedly needs.
Oh, I see. You learn the bad habit.
Exactly. You learn the rules, like the rule that every single film needs a comedy track completely unrelated to the plot. Or that the lighting must be blindingly bright so the star looks heroic at all times.
Right, or that the dialogue has to explicitly state the theme so no one misses it.
Yes. So because Ratnam didn't go through that system, he didn't know he was supposed to obey those rules.
He didn't know what he couldn't do.
Right. He walked onto his first set for the 1983 Kannada film Pallavi Anu Pallavi, which starred a very young Anil Kapoor, by the way.
Oh, wow. Anil Kapoor in a Kannada film.
Yeah. And Ratnam just started applying his analytical framework. He looked at the standard script structure like an inefficient corporate workflow.
That is such a funny image.
He'd look at a scene and think, does the audience really need this character to give a 2-minute monologue explaining that he is sad if we just cast him in silhouette against a dark window?
And the answer is no.
Exactly. No. The monologue is redundant. Cut it.
Wow.
That corporate optimization is the exact origin of his legendary economy of storytelling.
That is absolutely wild.
Yeah.
But, we have to be honest about the results of this grand experiment.
Well, we do. It wasn't an instant success.
Right. Anu Pallavi wins a state film award for Best Screenplay in Karnataka, which is great, but it doesn't exactly light the box office on fire.
Oh, no, it didn't.
And then he follows it up with 2 more films that essentially underperformed commercially.
Right, and you really have to put that in the context of the era. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the 1980s industry was a fiercely, almost exclusively star-driven ecosystem.
It was all about the hero.
It's the era where titans like Rajinikanth and Kamal Hassan are practically treated as deities by the audience.
Totally.
The director, in many commercial projects, was viewed merely as a traffic cop.
A traffic cop.
Yeah, his job was just to ensure the star looked good and the song started on time.
Right, so the star is the product, and the director is basically just the packaging.
Yeah. Yes. So for a completely untrained director with a background in business consulting to deliver 3 commercial underperformer.
In a star-driven system, that's usually game over.
Exactly. In a normal scenario, the industry immune system would just attack him and flush him out. You generally don't get 4 strikes in that system. He would be completely finished.
But he wasn't. Because those first 3 films weren't really failures, were they?
No, they were prototypes.
Right. He was beta testing his structural discipline. Because, going from management consulting to directing is kind of like trying to optimize a spreadsheet and accidentally writing a beautiful poem.
That's a great way to put it.
If pure artistry without structure is just chaos, Ratnam was building this incredibly rigid, structurally sound architecture. He was just waiting for the right emotional payload to drop into that structure.
And that payload arrived in 1986.
Here we go.
The film was Mouna Ragam, which translates to Silent Symphony. And this is the moment where the Mani Ratnam we know today is truly born. This is where he takes all that structural theory, all that corporate optimization, and applies it to pure domestic heartbreak.
Okay, let's unpack this film. Let's break down why Mouna Ragam was such a shock to the system. Because, honestly, if you just hear the plot summary today, it might sound fairly standard.
It does sound simple on paper.
But in 1986, it was a cultural earthquake.
Absolutely.
It stars Ravathi as Divya, a young woman who was pressured into an arranged marriage with a man named Chandra Kumar, played by Mohan.
Right.
Now, the traditional narrative arc of this era demands something very specific here. It demands that the woman initially resists, but then slowly realizes her husband is like a godlike figure.
She submits to her fate.
Right. She submits and they live happily ever after. That's what audiences expected.
The standard narrative of domestication and duty.
Exactly. But what does Ratnam do? On their literal wedding night, Divya asks her new husband for a divorce as a wedding gift.
Which is just a staggering piece of dialogue for 1986.
It really is. She explicitly firmly states that she has no interest in him, and she enforces a strictly platonic relationship.
Right.
And the film reveals that she is completely paralyzed by grief over the violent death of her former lover.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. She isn't framed as a villain for rejecting her husband. And her husband isn't a villain for being frustrated.
Exactly. They are just 2 decent people trapped in an impossibly awkward, painful, entirely real domestic situation. You really have to zoom out and look at the cultural landscape to understand the bravery of that script.
Tell me more about that.
Well, Tamil cinema audiences were trained on hyper-melodrama. Heroes were flawlessly good, villains sneered and kicked dogs.
Very black and white.
Exactly. And the female lead's interior life was rarely the actual engine of the plot.
She was usually just there to be rescued or to dance.
Right. By forcing the audience to sit in the quiet, agonizing discomfort of a marriage where 2 people are sleeping in different rooms, dealing with the ghost of a dead lover, he was treating the audience with an immense amount of respect.
He trusted them.
He really did.
And I want you, the listener, to think about your own media consumption today.
Yeah.
How often do you watch a movie or a show that genuinely trusts you to sit with moral ambiguity?
It's rare.
Extremely rare. Where you aren't being spoon-fed who to root for. It is incredibly rare even now. And to think that a guy who was analyzing corporate workflows a few years prior is the one who unlocked this deep, empathetic exploration of a grieving woman's psychology.
It's a stunning pivot.
It really is.
But the narrative revolution of Mouna Ragam was really only half the equation.
What was the other half?
The visual revolution. This is where Ratnam's collaboration with the brilliant cinematographer P.C. Sriram completely changed the texture of Indian cinema.
Okay, we need to explain exactly how they changed it. Because visual texture can sound a bit abstract to someone who isn't a film student. What were they doing with the cameras that was so different?
Okay, let's talk about light. Before Ratnam and Sriram, the standard lighting philosophy in commercial Indian cinema was essentially flood the set.
Just turn all the lights on.
Basically, yeah. If you have a superstar on screen, the producer wants to see their face clearly at all times.
Right.
So the lighting was flat, bright, and completely unmotivated by reality. It looked like a stage play.
Well, yeah, you're paying millions for the star. You better see the star.
Exactly. But Ratnam and Sriram start experimenting with backlighting.
Backlighting, okay.
They place the strongest light source behind the actors.
And what happens when you do that?
The actor's face falls into shadow. They become a silhouette.
Oh, wow.
Right. Suddenly, they aren't these glowing, infallible, cinematic gods anymore. The shadow makes them look vulnerable, mysterious, flawed. Just by moving a light bulb, they completely altered the psychological relationship between the audience and the character.
That is so smart.
Yeah.
And they combined that visual melancholy with the music of Ilyasha.
Oh, the music. Yes.
And again, this wasn't standard background music.
Yeah.
In a typical film of that era, if a character is crying, the violins are crying, right? The music just mimics the action.
It's very literal.
Right. But Ilyasha's score for Mouna Ragam acts in counterpoint.
Yes, it's not doing the obvious thing.
It is so complex. Sometimes it plays against the obvious emotion of the scene, adding these layers of irony or hidden longing to the silences.
Mani Ratnam goes on to win the National Film Award for Best Tamil Film.
Huge validation.
Huge. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that Ratnam can master the claustrophobic, intense, intimate space of a failing marriage.
What?
But from an artistic standpoint, once you've conquered the microcosm, the natural instinct is to test your theories on a macro scale.
Right, you've proven you can make a devastating movie about two people in a living room.
Yeah.
The terrifying question is, what happens if you take that exact same psychological depth, that exact same visual economy, and you blow it up to the scale of a sprawling, violent, multi-generational underworld epic?
And the answer to that question, released just 1 year later in 1987, is Nayakan.
This is the film.
This is it?
If Mouna Ragam was the breakthrough, Nayakan is the absolute masterpiece that cemented his place in global cinema history.
Without a doubt.
We started this deep dive with that incredible silent reaction shot from this movie, but we really need to walk through the architecture of this story because it is staggering.
Let's do it. So Nayakan is the story of Velu.
Right.
He's a young Tamil boy living in the southern state of Tamil Nadu. He witnesses his father, who is a labor leader, being brutally murdered by a corrupt policeman.
Awful.
In a panic, the child flees. He jumps on a train that takes him far away to the massive, unforgiving metropolis of Bombay.
And he ends up in the dark, grimy underbelly of Dharavi.
Right, the massive slum in Bombay.
Specifically within the Tamil migrant community there. And the film tracks his life over the next 40 years. We watch this terrified, traumatized orphan slowly, inevitably transform into a ruthless underworld villain.
Right, a smuggler and a killer.
But, and this is crucial, Ratnam refuses to make him a caricature of evil.
Right, he's not just a cartoon villain.
Not at all. The tragedy of Velu is that he becomes a criminal out of necessity.
Necessity. Yeah, he becomes the protector of the marginalized Tamil community in Bombay. When the official justice system fails them, when the police brutalize them, Velu steps in.
He fills the void.
Exactly. He dispenses justice, he builds hospitals, he becomes a father figure to thousands of people.
But there's an irony there.
A massive one. The agonizing irony of the film is that in order to protect his people from monsters, he has to become the very monster he fled from as a child.
Now, I know anyone listening to that plot summary is immediately going to think of Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather.
Oh, of course. It's the immediate comparison.
And Ratnam has never hidden that influence, has he?
No, he's been very open about it.
The structural DNA of The Godfather is undeniably present, but, I mean, to call Nayakan just an Indian remake of The Godfather is a massive disservice, isn't it?
It's an entirely different cultural organism.
How so?
Well, The Godfather is deeply rooted in the Italian-American immigrant experience, right?
Yeah.
It's about the idea of corrupting the American dream. Nayakan takes that epic template and saturates it with very specific, very volatile Indian sociopolitical realities.
Okay.
It is fundamentally about the experience of being a linguistic and cultural minority within your own country's largest financial capital.
There is this one scene, this one line of dialogue that completely illustrates this difference for me.
Oh, I know exactly which one you mean.
Right. Velu, who is a Tamil speaker, is cornered and brutally beaten by a group of Hindi-speaking Bombay policemen.
It's a brutal scene.
And he is bloodied, he is broken, but he looks up at this towering police officer, and in broken, heavily accented Hindi, he says, "If I ever hit you, you will die."
That line is a cultural seismic event.
Explain why for our listeners. Why does that hit so hard for the audience?
Because it isn't just a tough guy delivering like an action movie one-liner.
Right.
You have to understand the deep historical tensions regarding language in India, specifically the anti-Hindi imposition sentiments in Tamil Nadu.
Okay, so it's much bigger than just Velu and the cop.
Yeah. Oh, much bigger. When Velu speaks that line in broken Hindi, he is channeling the collective frustration and defiance of a marginalized community, pushing back against systemic, linguistic, and state oppression.
Wow.
It carries the weight of decades of real-world political tension. Ratnam took the glossy gangster genre and injected it with such dense, visceral socio-political reality that it stopped being a genre film.
What did it become?
It became a historical document.
And we cannot talk about Nayakan without bowing down to the central performance by Kamal Hassan.
Just unbelievable work.
It is, without hyperbole, one of the greatest physical performances in the history of cinema.
It really is.
He plays Valu from his late 20s all the way into his late 60s or early 70s.
And here's the crazy part. He does the vast majority of this 40-year aging process without heavy prosthetics.
That is the part that literally melts my brain.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine your favorite Hollywood actor today being asked to age 40 years on screen.
They'd panic.
They would immediately demand millions of dollars in silicone makeup, right? Or like a whole team of VFX artists to digitally age their face frame by frame like The Irishman.
Exactly. But Kamal Hassan did it with his spine.
Yes.
It's a masterclass in internalizing a character's history. You literally watch his posture slowly collapse over 3 hours.
Just a millimeter at a time.
You watch the exact way he carries his shoulders change as the guilt and the blood on his hands accumulate. The light in his eyes genuinely seems to dim as the decades pass. It's physical acting of the highest possible order.
He rightfully won the National Award for Best Actor for that.
Oh, totally deserved.
And the film won 3 national awards in total. It was even sent as India's official entry for the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
But the true measure of this film's legacy actually came much later, in 2005.
Yes. When Time magazine convened their critics to create the definitive list of the 100 greatest films of all time.
Not just Indian films.
All films.
All films. In the history of the medium.
And Nayakan was on it.
Incredible. It sat right there, alongside Satyajit Ray's Apu trilogy, alongside Guru Dutt's Pyasa, alongside Citizen Kane and Casablanca.
It's just wild. The guy who was optimizing supply chains in Bombay just a few years earlier had created a piece of art that was officially ranked among the greatest cultural achievements of humanity.
It gives you chills.
Yeah.
And that kind of universal global recognition proves something essential, I think.
What's that?
It proved that by 1987, there was a definitive, recognizable Mani Ratnam style. He had developed a cinematic language so distinct that it completely transcended regional and language barriers.
It's true. You could walk into a movie theater blindfolded, take the blindfold off, watch exactly 2 minutes of footage without hearing a single word of dialogue.
And you would instantly know.
You would instantly know you were watching a Mani Ratnam film.
So how do we define that style? Let's take a deep dive into the grammar of a master.
Okay. The foundation of his grammar is his obsessive, almost fanatical commitment to treating cinema as a purely visual medium.
Which, I mean, sounds incredibly obvious. It's movies. Of course they are visual.
Right. But in the context of the industry he was working in, dialogue was king. The camera was often just a static recording device meant to capture 2 actors delivering theatrical monologues.
So he liberated the camera.
He did. And what's fascinating here is the way he achieved this. He didn't do it alone. He treated his cinematographers not as hired hands, but as absolute co-authors.
Give me an example.
Well, we talked about P.C. Sriram, who helped build that initial aesthetic foundation of light and shadow. The stories of them sitting at the Samco restaurant in Chennai, fiercely arguing over the exact placement of a shadow, are legendary in the industry.
I love that image. Just 2 guys at a restaurant changing cinema.
Exactly. But then look at his work with Santosh Sivan later on.
Right.
Sivan shot 6 films for Ratnam, and Sivan has explicitly stated that Ratnam forced him to invent a completely different visual approach for every single one of them.
No repeating tricks.
Exactly.
And whether he was working with Sriram Sivan or other brilliant minds like Rajiv Menon and Ravi K. Chandran, there are these unmistakable hallmarks.
Like?
Well, we mentioned the backlighting and the silhouettes. But there's also this profound fearlessness when it comes to darkness.
Oh, that's a great point.
Most commercial directors are terrified of the dark. They think the audience will get bored or confused if everything isn't perfectly illuminated.
Right, they want everything visible.
But Ratnam uses shadows to hide information, to create dread, to emphasize isolation.
Yes.
And his camera movement, it never just drifts. It isn't just shaky cam kinetic energy for the sake of looking cool. If the camera tracks forward, it is because the psychological tension of the scene is tracking forward.
Every single frame is an intentional architectural decision.
It really is.
But if his visual grammar was revolutionary, his approach to the musical sequence was practically a paradigm shift.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because this is where his management consultant brain really flexes.
How so?
Think about the traditional song and dance sequence in an Indian commercial film. Historically, what is his actual function?
It's a commercial break.
Exactly. The story literally halts. The lead actors suddenly appear in a different country, wearing 4 different brightly colored outfits. They dance, the song ends, and then we warp back to the plot exactly where we left it.
The song has zero narrative utility. It's purely an exhibition of star power and musical entertainment.
But Ratnam looks at that and says, this is incredibly inefficient.
Total management consultant move.
Right. He's like, if I have 5 minutes of screen time dedicated to a song, that song must advance the narrative. So he completely transforms the song sequence.
He does.
In most movies, a song is a commercial break. In a Mani Ratnam movie, the song is the character's diary being read out loud.
That is the perfect metaphor, the diary. He takes the grammar of the MTV music video, which was just exploding globally at the time.
Yeah, the rapid cutting, the surreal imagery.
Right, the intense color grading. He takes all that and he fuses it with deep psychological purpose.
Let's give a concrete example of this because it's brilliant.
Okay.
Take the song Chaya Chaya from his 1998 film Dil Se.
Oh, iconic.
This is one of the most famous song sequences in history, featuring Shah Rukh Khan dancing on top of a moving train, choreographed by Farah Khan.
Amazing sequence.
Now, on a surface level, it is a spectacular toe-tapping piece of entertainment. But look at what it's actually doing narratively.
Right, it's entirely psychological.
Break it down for me.
Okay, so the character Amar has just met this incredibly mysterious, dangerous woman. He is completely infatuated, completely unmoored from his stable reality.
Right. So where does Ratnam stage the song?
On the roof of a train, hurtling uncontrollably through a mountain pass.
Yes. Amar isn't grounded. He literally has no footing. The wind is violently whipping around him, the scenery is just flying by, and he is dancing on the edge of a sheer drop.
It's so dangerous.
The physical location of the song is a literal mechanical manifestation of the character's internal psychological state. He is moving at breakneck speed toward a destination he cannot control.
That is exactly what we mean when we say the song is a diary.
It's genius.
And that transition in musical storytelling was supercharged by his composers. He had this magnificent early era with Ilayaraja.
Right, who provided the deep, emotional, semi-classical heartbeat to films like Mouna Ragam, Nayakan, and Thalapathy.
But then, in 1992, Ratnam makes a pivot that alters the trajectory of Indian culture.
A huge pivot.
For his film Roja, he decides to take a massive, unprecedented gamble on a 20-something kid who is basically just composing jingles.
And that kid is A.R. Rahman.
It is arguably the most consequential creative partnership in modern cinema.
I would agree with that.
Rahman wasn't just bringing in new electronic instruments, he was bringing in a global, synthesizer-heavy, mathematically complex soundscape and fusing it with ancient classical traditions.
Ratnam provided the emotional architecture, and Rahman built the cathedral inside it.
Exactly.
But, the glue holding the visual shadows and the musical cathedrals together is the script. Because Ratnam is one of the very few massive commercial directors who writes almost all of his own screenplays. He completely controls the skeleton of the film.
And the defining characteristic of a Mani Ratnam script goes right back to his corporate roots. Extreme economy.
Implication overstatement.
Yes, he operates on a strict rule. If the lighting or the music or a slight shift in an actor's eyes can convey an emotion,
He'll cut the dialogue.
he will absolutely refuse to give the character a line of dialogue explaining it. He is famous in the editing room for cutting scenes a beat early.
Right, just before the moment of complete catharsis.
He cuts, forcing the audience's brain to kind of bridge the gap and complete the emotional thought themselves.
And his characters are never simple. They are a total mess of moral contradictions. Velu is a loving father who murders people. Amar in Dil Se is an idealistic, passionate journalist who essentially becomes a destructive, suffocating force to the woman he loves.
So complex.
But I actually have to push back a little on this whole economy of storytelling philosophy.
Okay, let's hear it.
If you are constantly cutting scenes early, if you are relying on shadows and implication, and if you are completely refusing to spoon-feed the audience, doesn't that inherently alienate the massive segment of the audience that goes to the movies on a Friday night precisely because they want to be spoon-fed?
That's a fair point.
I mean, they just worked a 50-hour week.
Right.
They don't want to decipher the subtext of a backlight.
Right.
They want a clear hero, a clear villain, and a clean resolution. If his films reward multiple viewings, like great literature, Does that alienate audiences who just want a straightforward Friday night popcorn movie?
It's a very fair critique, and honestly, it is a tension that has defined his entire career.
Mm-hmm.
His extreme economy absolutely does frustrate certain viewers who find his endings too abrupt or his characters too opaque.
Right.
But here is his genius. He builds a dual-layered cinematic experience.
Dual-layered.
Yeah, the surface layer is a spectacular feast. The cinematography is gorgeous, the actors are magnetic, and A.R. Rahman's music is instantly intoxicating.
Okay, I see.
That surface layer is enough to gratify the casual Friday night viewer. They're entertained. But the structural depth, the moral ambiguity, the quiet tragedy that is the second layer, waiting right there for the audience member who is willing to dig.
He won't hand you the meaning, but he gives you all the tools to excavate it yourself.
Exactly.
And that precise grammar, that willingness to let the audience sit in deep moral discomfort, was about to be put to the ultimate, most dangerous test imaginable.
Oh, yes.
Because in the 1990s, Mani Ratnam takes his camera, turns it away from the fictional underworld, and points it directly at the bleeding edge of modern Indian history.
He tackles the most explosive, politically charged events of the decade while the fires are literally still burning.
We are entering the era of his political trilogy.
We are. And before we dive into the specifics of these three films, we really need to make something absolutely unequivocally clear to you, the listener.
Yes, this is critical. In this next section, we are going to be discussing films that deal with real-world terrorism, secessionist movements, and horrific communal violence.
Heavy, heavy topics.
As we discuss these films, we are neutrally reporting on the themes of the movies, purely as artistic achievements and as cinematic grief documents.
We are exploring how a filmmaker processes national trauma through narrative.
Exactly. We are taking absolutely no sides regarding the complex, real-world, political, religious, or territorial conflicts that these films depict. We're just looking at the art.
Completely neutral, because what Ratnam attempted in the 1990s was staggering, and frankly, it was perilous.
Perilous is the right word.
Mainstream Indian commercial cinema generally avoided direct engagement with contemporary political violence.
Too risky.
Way too risky, both commercially and physically. But Ratnam decided that these historical traumas were exactly what cinema needed to process.
So the trilogy begins in 1992 with Roja.
Right.
The setup is incredibly intense. We follow a young, innocent Tamil Brahmin woman named Roja, played by Madhu. She marries a cryptologist working for the government.
Okay.
They go to Kashmir for his assignment, and almost immediately he is kidnapped by Kashmiri militants.
Just snatched.
And the rest of the film tracks her absolutely desperate, agonizing struggle to get him back.
And she is completely out of her depth. She is a woman from a warm southern village thrust into the freezing alien landscape of the Himalayas.
Totally different world.
She doesn't speak the language. She has to navigate a cold, labyrinthine military bureaucracy that basically treats her husband as a statistic,
while simultaneously trying to understand a violent, complex geopolitical conflict that means literally nothing to her personal reality.
But the reason Raja was such a revelation and why it avoided being just cheap jingoistic propaganda was Ratnam's insistence on gray areas.
Gray areas.
He refused to draw the militants as flat, cartoonish monsters who just love doing evil things. He gave them motives and grievances, even as he condemned their violence.
And conversely, he didn't portray the state military apparatus as flawlessly heroic either.
No, he showed the bureaucracy's apathy. He showed the flaws.
The film was released on August 15th, which is India's Independence Day. Yep. And despite, or maybe because of its complex handling of the subject, it became a massive nationwide phenomenon.
It was huge. And, as we noted, it unleashed A.R. Rahman upon the world. Songs like Roja Janaman became instant anthems, blending the personal tragedy of the couple with the sweeping, tragic majesty of the landscape.
But if Roja was testing the waters of political cinema, his next film was jumping directly into the inferno.
Oh, man. Yes.
In 1995, he releases Bombay.
This is perhaps his most courageous and controversial film.
The narrative takes us into the heart of one of the darkest chapters in modern Indian history. It tells the story of Shekhar, a Hindu man, and Shayla Bano, a Muslim woman, living in a coastal village.
Right.
They fall deeply in love, but their families are violently opposed to the union.
Naturally.
So they elope, they flee to the cosmopolitan anonymity of Bombay to build a life together. They have twin sons, they build a beautiful, fragile little world for themselves. And then history crashes right through their front door.
The film is set directly against the backdrop of the December 1992 demolition of the Babri Masjid and the horrific communal riots that subsequently tore the city of Bombay apart in December 92 and January 93.
We are talking about neighbor turning against neighbor, neighborhoods burning, absolute sectarian carnage. And this beautiful mixed religion family is violently torn apart in the chaos.
It's so hard to watch.
The parents lose their twin children in the fire and the panic of the riots, and the film becomes an agonizing search through a burning city.
Now, releasing a film about the Bombay riots just 2 years after the actual Bombay riots was an unimaginably risky proposition.
People were still healing.
Yes. Naturally, the film was a lightning rod. It faced severe protests from the Shiv Sena, a prominent right-wing political party in Maharashtra, as well as from various Muslim organizations.
Ratnam himself actually faced physical threats, didn't he?
He did. The censorship battles alone were immense.
And yet, it became a massive, transcendent success across the entire country.
It did.
Why? Because Ratnam understood something fundamental about human empathy. If you show an audience a statistic, if you say, thousands of people died in a riot, the human brain just cannot process that level of macro tragedy.
It's too vast. It becomes abstract.
Exactly. But if you take that massive, abstract historical trauma and you filter it through a single, intimate human relationship.
Like a mother screaming for her twin boys in a burning street.
Yes. Suddenly the political becomes agonizingly personal. Bombay succeeded because it wasn't a political lecture.
It was a grief document.
A grief document. It held up a mirror to the society and asked, through the terrifying ordeal of these parents, look at the absolute madness of what we do to each other over ideology.
Which perfectly sets up the final, most psychologically devastating film in this thematic trilogy, 1998's Dil Se.
This is the film where Ratnam takes the concept of extreme ideology and pits it directly against the concept of romantic love, just to see which one breaks first.
It's so dark.
Shah Rukh Khan plays Amar, an all-India radio journalist. He is traveling through the conflict zones of northeast India, and on a dark, rainy train platform, he briefly meets a mysterious woman named Meghna, played by Manisha Koirala.
Right.
He becomes instantly, irrationally obsessed with her. He pursues her, she constantly vanishes, but eventually we learn her dark, terrifying secret.
She isn't just playing hard to get.
No, she is a member of a liberation group. She is a trained suicide bomber.
It is a profound, deeply disturbing tragedy because Amar believes, with all the arrogant optimism of a traditional cinematic hero, that his pure, relentless love can save her.
Right. He thinks love cures everything.
He believes love is a magic bullet that can cure her trauma. But Meghna is a character who has been entirely hollowed out by state violence. She has been physically and psychologically broken by historical trauma.
Is Dil Se the ultimate anti-fairy tale?
Oh, absolutely.
Because, I mean, in 99% of movies, love actually conquers all. If you just love the broken person enough, they will drop the bomb and walk into the sunset with you.
That's the Hollywood ending.
But Ratnam looks at the audience and says, no, love doesn't conquer all. When an arrogant, naive love is pitted against deep, systemic trauma and the cold machinery of violent ideology, love fails. It is crushed.
That is a phenomenal analysis.
Thanks.
And because it was such an uncompromising anti-fairy tale, because it completely denied the audience the clean catharsis of a rescue, Dil Se was actually initially a box office disappointment in India.
Really? With Shah Rukh Khan?
Yeah. The domestic audience simply wasn't ready to accept Shah Rukh Khan, the ultimate romantic icon of the 90s, failing to save the girl.
Wow.
However, it found a massive immediate audience internationally, particularly with the diaspora in the UK and the US, and today it is revered as a cinematic masterpiece ahead of its time.
Okay, so he's making these massive macro-political epics that are literally shaking the nation, sparking protests, and redefining how cinema handles terrorism.
The scale is massive.
But here is the paradox of Mani Ratnam. While he's doing all of that, he is simultaneously pulling the camera all the way back in, exploring conflict on a micro scale.
Yes.
He is exploring the political battleground of a friendship and the quiet, claustrophobic battleground of modern marriage.
Let's pivot to his intimate epics. These are films where the explosions aren't literal bombs, but emotional detonations.
I like that.
Let's start with a film that is widely considered the ultimate secret handshake among true Indian cinephiles. 1997's Iruvar, which translates to The Duo.
Tell us why this is the secret handshake.
Because it is a masterclass in subtlety, and it requires a deep understanding of Tamil Nadu's unique cultural history.
Okay.
Iruvar is a brilliantly fictionalized account of the real-life friendship and subsequent incredibly bitter rivalry between two towering figures, M.G. Ramachandran, known as MGR, and M. Karunanidhi.
These were men who essentially built modern Tamil Nadu, right?
Yes, completely. They started in the theater and early cinema. One was a charismatic actor who became a literal deity to the masses. The other was a brilliant, fiery writer who penned the scripts that fueled the actor's rise. Together, they created the golden age of Tamil cinema.
And then,
Then they both transitioned into politics, and the very ambition and brilliance that made them an unstoppable team eventually turned them into the fiercest of political rivals, both vying for the chief minister's seat.
the film stars Mohanlal and Prakash Raj, who delivered two of the greatest performances in Indian cinema.
Absolutely legendary performance.
And it was shot by Santosh Sivan, who has stated on record that this was the most demanding, complex work of his entire career.
It makes sense. He had to light two massive egos slowly circling each other over decades.
And the film's reputation just continues to grow, right? It recently became the first Tamil film to be screened at the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures in Los Angeles.
In 2025, yeah. But if Iruvar is about what happens when a political honeymoon ends, Ratnam was also deeply interested in what happens when a literal honeymoon ends.
Yes.
And that brings us to his romance trilogy.
We've already covered the foundation of this trilogy, Mouna Ragam from 1986. But he revisits this theme in the year 2000 with a film that I think is fundamentally traumatizing to anyone who has ever been in a long-term relationship.
Oh, boy.
I'm talking about Alayapayuthi, starring Armadavan and Shalini.
Traumatizing is a strong word, but honestly, incredibly accurate.
It is the ultimate anti-rom-com. Think about it. Every romantic comedy you have ever seen builds up to the moment where the couple defies their parents, runs through an airport or a train station, kisses, and gets married.
Fade to black. Happily ever after.
Exactly. Alayapayuthi starts exactly where the fairy tale ends.
It does. Karthik and Shakti fall madly in love. They elope against their parents' wishes. They find a rundown apartment, and they are completely high on the thrill of rebellion and romance.
And then the adrenaline wears off.
Oh,
And reality hits them like a freight train. Suddenly, Ratnam forces you to watch as the magical person you fell in love with at the train station morphs into the exact same person you were viciously, venomously arguing with at 1 a.m. over dirty dishes, unpaid electricity bills, and whose turn it is to clean the bathroom.
it's so painfully real.
It captures the absolute brutal whiplash of transitioning from the poetry of romance to the relentless, grinding prose of shared domestic life.
That is Ratnam's central obsession. What happens after the initial thrill?
The morning after.
Right. In Iruvar, what happens after you achieve power? In Alayapayuthi, what happens after you get the girl? Can love survive the mundane, tedious, unglamorous parts of existence?
He explores this again in 2015 with Okatal Kanmani, starring Dulquer Salmaan and Nithi Menon.
Right, okay, Kanmani, where he updates the question for a new generation.
Yeah, in Okan Kanmani, the young couple explicitly rejects the institution of marriage entirely. They opt for a modern live-in relationship in Mumbai, thinking they have somehow outsmarted the trap that Karthik and Shakti fell into in Alayapayuthi.
They think they figured it out.
But Ratnam counterpoints their breezy, commitment-phobic romance with the story of their older landlords, a deeply devoted older couple where the wife is slowly losing her mind to Alzheimer's disease.
It's a profound juxtaposition. The young couple thinks love is about freedom and avoiding the messy parts.
Right.
The older couple proves that true love is exactly about navigating the mess, the tragedy, the sickness, the obligation.
So we've covered silent gangsters, burning cities, political rivalries, and couples fighting over dirty dishes.
That's a lot of ground.
It is. You would think a director who has covered that much ground would be satisfied. But for his entire career, for over 30 years, Mani Ratnam was carrying around a white whale.
A huge one.
A dream so massive, so sprawling, and so logistically terrifying that it was widely considered to be the unadaptable holy grail of Tamil literature.
We're talking about his magnum opus, the adaptation of Kalki Krishnamurthy's legendary 1950s serialized novel, Ponniyin Selvan.
We really need to contextualize the cultural weight of this book for the listener, because calling it a popular novel does not even begin to cover it.
Not even close. The comparison often made is that for the Tamil-speaking world, a director announcing they are going to adapt, Ponniyin Selvan is like Steven Spielberg announcing he is going to adapt the Bible.
Wow.
Or Peter Jackson taking on The Lord of the Rings. It is a 2,400-page historical fiction epic about the early years of the Chola Empire in the 10th century.
That's massive.
It is filled with succession intrigues, assassinations, massive naval battles, and the young prince who would eventually become the legendary Rajaraja Chola. It is practically a sacred text.
And Ratnam had been trying to make this movie since the late 1980s.
Over 30 years.
He had the script written. He tried to launch it with Kamal Hassan in '89. It collapsed due to budget. He tried again in 2010 with Vijay and Mahesh Babu. It collapsed again.
Just brutal heartbreak.
You have to admire the sheer, almost psychotic stubbornness required to hold on to a singular cinematic vision for 3 decades through multiple failures.
But he finally willed it into existence.
He really did.
He shot it back-to-back as a 2-part epic, releasing Part 1 in 2022 and Part 2 in 2023. It required a budget of over $70 million, which is staggering for the industry.
And the cast.
He assembled a galaxy of stars: Vikram, Karthi, Jayam Ravi, Aishwarya Rai Bachchan, Trisha, Sobhita Dalipala, Sarath Kumar. It was an undertaking of monumental scale.
But here's what I find most fascinating about Ponniyin Selvan.
Yeah.
When you give a modern director $70 million to make a historical epic, the default setting today is to just shoot the actors in a green room.
And build a glossy, perfect, weightless CGI kingdom around them.
Exactly. It ends up looking like a plastic video game. But Ratnam gave a quote about his visual approach to this film that I absolutely love.
What did he say?
He said, "There should be sunlight, dirt, sweat. You should feel that you are there."
That quote is the ultimate distillation of his philosophy. Even when he's dealing with kings and queens and a 2,400-page myth, his focus remains entirely on the tactile human reality of the moment.
He didn't want a clean myth. He wanted you to smell the dirt on the battlefield.
Yes.
He wanted you to feel the heavy silk robes sticking to the actors' backs in the South Indian heat, the doot under the fingernails of an emperor.
And beyond the visuals, the real triumph of Ponniyin Selvan is the writing.
Which goes back to compression.
Exactly. To take a beloved, dense, winding 2,400-page novel and compress it into 2 feature films without betraying its soul or, enraging the very passionate fan base is a feat of narrative engineering.
Goes right back to that management consultant brain, doesn't it?
It does. He knew exactly what structural redundancies to cut and what emotional core to preserve.
And A.R. Rahman delivered a score that blended 10th century Carnatic traditions with this sweeping modern orchestral dread.
Part I shattered box office records and won national awards.
It is the ultimate victory lap.
It really is.
But it brings up a really complex question about the very nature of genius in cinema. You cannot execute a $70 million 30-year dream all by yourself. You cannot rewrite the rules of lighting without a master cinematographer. You cannot redefine the musical sequence without a genius composer.
Right. This raises an important question regarding the auteur theory.
Yes.
The auteur theory suggests the director is the sole author of a film. We call Ratnam an auteur, but his career proves that true cinematic genius often lies not in dictating every single detail, but in shaping the perfect context for other geniuses to shine.
Let's look at the absolute army of visionaries in his collaborative universe. You have P.C. Sriram, who laid the visual foundation of shadows and light.
You have Santosh Sivan, the mad scientist pushing the boundaries of what a camera could do.
You have the emotional heartbeat of Ilayaraja, seamlessly handing the baton to the unprecedented 30-year unbroken partnership with A.R. Rahman.
And we cannot forget the production designers like Thada Tharani, who literally built massive functioning replicas of Bombay streets right in the middle of Chennai studios.
Or the actors like Kamal Hassan, whom he guided to immortality in Nayakan, and is remarkably reuniting with in 2025 for a new film called Thug Life.
And there's one more vital creative presence we haven't mentioned: his wife, Suhasini.
Oh, yes.
She is a powerhouse, a brilliant actress, a director in her own right, and an essential creative sounding board and dialogue writer within his universe.
Ratnam isn't a dictator. He is an architect.
Right. A.R. Rahman once explained their process by saying that Ratnam doesn't prescribe what the music should sound like. He just explains the psychological state of the character.
He builds a massive, secure, emotional sandbox, and he lets the geniuses play.
Exactly. Which brings us to the ultimate question of legacy.
What exactly did Mani Ratnam leave behind?
He took an industry where the star was the only thing that mattered, and he made Tamil cinema a director's medium.
He completely dismantled the artificial wall separating high art from commercial popcorn cinema, proving a film could be both.
He discovered Rahman and altered the DNA of global music.
He forced the mainstream to confront devastating political realities despite massive censorship.
And his placement on the Time 100 list proved definitively that a guy with a business degree from Bombay could sit at the exact same table as Wong Kar-wai, Almodovar, Kurosawa, and Coppola.
And he was awarded the Padma Shri in 2002 for all of this.
Very well deserved.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener?
Why should you care?
Right. Why should you care about a filmmaker whose first movie came out over 40 years ago?
You should care because of how people actually use his art.
Explain that.
Millions of people do not watch a Mani Ratnam film simply to kill 2 hours on a Friday night. They use his films as a language to understand their own lives.
Wow.
They use Alapayuthe to process the frustration of their own marriages. They use Bombay to navigate their terror regarding their country's politics. They use Mouna Ragam to understand their own grief. He gave people a visual and emotional vocabulary to understand themselves.
That is beautiful. It has been a massive, sprawling journey we've taken today.
It really has.
We started in a sterile corporate boardroom with a guy writing supply chain reports. We followed him into a noisy theater where he silenced an audience with the heartbreak of a gangster in Nayakan.
Yeah.
We walked through the literal burning fires of the political trilogy. We sat through the quiet, agonizing intimacy of couples arguing over dirty dishes. And we soared to the epic, sweaty, dirt-filled battlefields of the Chola Empire.
And if you trace a single thread through all of those eras, all of those genres, and all of those decades, it all comes back to one simple concept.
Which is?
Trust.
Trust.
Yes. From his very first films, Ratnam trusted the audience. He trusted you to understand the implication of a shadow.
He trusted you to bridge the gap when he cut a scene a beat early.
He trusted you to sit with moral discomfort. He refused to spoon-feed you because he respected your intelligence.
Which leaves me with a final, slightly provocative thought. I want you, the listener, to mull over today.
I like the sound of this.
Think about the media landscape we live in right now. We live in the era of the TikTok algorithm. We live in the era of second screening, where we watch a massive Marvel movie while simultaneously scrolling through Instagram on our phones.
Our attention spans are completely shattered.
Exactly. We live in a culture where the media constantly yells at us, at maximum volume, explicitly telling us exactly what we are supposed to feel every single second, because the creators are terrified that if we get confused for even a moment, we will just swipe away.
It is a media landscape built on a fundamental distrust of the audience's patience.
Right. So in a world like that, is Mani Ratnam's economy of storytelling, his profound, stubborn trust in silence, actually more vital now than it was in 1987?
That is a great question.
Tonight, when you sit down on your couch to watch a movie or binge a new show, I want you to look past the dialogue and the explosions. I want you to pay close attention to the silences.
Just listen.
Ask yourself, does the director behind this camera actually trust you? Or are they just yelling at you?
That's something to think about.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. Keep watching, and watch carefully.